Alright, here we are with the second group. And what we have here is starting off is the Jungle Book. I hear this is okay. Gamester81 said that it was the best version of the game. Came out on the Super Nintendo. Not sure what other systems it did. But yeah, it's inexpensive and I figured it was worth giving a try. After that we have Jurassic Park. This is probably one of my favorite movies when I was growing up. When that movie came out, I just loved it. And when the game came out, I thought, man, this gotta be good. It's not as good as I thought it was going to be, but it's a decent game. And for how cheap it is, I think it's worth picking up, especially if you're a fan of the movie. Next up is Jurassic Park Rampage Edition, which is where Grant goes on a rampage and just decides he needs to kill everything. Not just the dinosaurs, but everything and everyone. I don't know. But it's an interesting game. Also not very expensive. Next up, Kid Chameleon, one that I haven't played, but is highly regarded, and I've just not really heard much bad about it, so I decided to pick that one up. Still need to do a playthrough of it. Krusty's Super Funhouse. I somehow ended up with the case and manual for this, and so I heard it's actually the only decent Simpsons game for the Genesis. So I picked up the cartridge loose for next to nothing. Still haven't played it. Landstalker. Supposed to be a really, really good game, one that I have not played and definitely need to give a try. Last Battle. Aaron from Retro Liberty said this was a really good game. This game is dirt cheap. And it looks interesting, but I mean, he suggested it, so it was a great game, so I picked it up with a bunch of other Genesis games, and we'll have to give it a try and see. The Lion King. I think this is a pretty good game. It also came out on the Super Nintendo. You'll get varying views on which one is better. I think it's really sixes, doesn't matter. But for the price that it's going for, a worthy pickup if you like the Disney movies and whatnot. Lotus 2. It's a mediocre racing game at best. Not much more to say about that. Mega Bomberman. I love the Bomberman series, and this one, as I said, I think is a port of Super Famicom version, either Bomberman 5 or 6. I can't remember what somebody said, but thought I'd pick this one up. Definitely one that I want to give a try. Mega Man: The Wily Wars. This is a reproduction. Did not come out in the US. Actually, I should say you could get it as early DLC for the Genesis through their, was it the X-Band, the modem peripheral they had or whatever. But this is basically Mega Man 1, 2, and 3, ports from the Nintendo version. And there's something else on it, I can't remember, but definitely a fun game. Interesting to play the first 3 on the Genesis. But it is kind of expensive being a reproduction, so if you have those games for the NES, you may not want to bother. But next up is Mickey Mania. Looks like a lot of fun. Got this for Christmas last year from my good friend Carl, who I've talked about on the channel before. He's the one that did the intros, but yeah, definitely want to give that one a try. Looks like a lot of fun. Next up is Mighty Morphin Power Rangers. Also available on the Super Nintendo, and they are not the same game. The Super Nintendo game is a platformer, and this is a fighting game. And it's okay. I wouldn't spend much on it if you're thinking about picking it up. Next up, Mortal Kombat 1, 2, and 3. I love the Mortal Kombat series. And I think the Genesis versions are the ones to get because, well, there's blood in them. And I get to rip people's head off and watch blood drip from their spinal cord because I'm a sick, twisted person. But if you want the more family-friendly version, I mean, of a fighting game where you're ripping somebody's head off, yeah, get it for the Super Nintendo. But these games are not expensive, and if you're a fan of fighting games, I just don't see how you can't have Mortal Kombat. But next up, Miss Pac-Man. It's Miss Pac-Man. I mean, there's not much else to say. If you like Miss Pac-Man, it's a good port to get. Next up is Musha. Probably my most expensive game in my collection. You will pay a lot of money for this one, complete. Mine is loose. That is a cover reprint, and I do not have the manual because even on eBay, if you find somebody selling the manual, they want like $150 for it. So I'm trying to find somebody that scanned the manual. I can try to print it out because that's insane. That's just insane. The price of this game, I do not understand. It's a good game. It's uncommon. Well, it's more than uncommon. It's a rare game. But seriously, if you're trying to find this game, I think they do. There's people that do reproductions. I would suggest that. I would never suggest paying what people are asking for it because that's just stupidity. But next up is Mystic Defender. This is a game I got from a friend back in my early days in high school, and it's an interesting side-scrolling platformer type game. Very inexpensive. If you can get it for $5-6, I think it's worth it. NBA Jam. I love this game, and I'm not a sports fan. I don't have many sports games, but I like these arcade type sports games, and NBA Jam is awesome. Same with NBA Jam Tournament Edition. Both are very inexpensive, worth getting. Nigel Mansell's World Championship Racing Formula One game. If you don't know who Nigel Mansell is, he's a old Formula One driver from back in the day. I've never played it, but I like Formula One. I like racing games, so I figured give it a try. It actually came with that group of Genesis cases. So next up is Outrun. It's not a great arcade port, but it's very decent and it's very cheap. Definitely worth picking up. Outrun 2019. Basically Outrun in a futuristic setting. It's okay. I'll just say that. Pac-Mania 2, the new adventure. Pac-Man 2, the new adventures. That's what it is. This game sucks. I'll just say that right off the bat. It sucks. But the reason I got it was in with a bunch of other games, and the reason I decided to keep it was because I hear it's got a great port of the original Pac-Man on it. And I think that's the only reason to have it. Next up is Pebble Beach Golf Links. Yes, another golf game. Came with that group of cases. And once again, just thought I'd give it a try because I have something about playing golf games. But next up is PGA Tour Golf Series. We got 1, 2, 3, and European Tour. There's also a PGA Tour 96. I just don't see the point of picking it up. But I really love PGA Tour Golf 2. Haven't played the other 3, but 2 just really, I have a lot of nostalgia playing that with my father. And yeah, definitely a great game, in my opinion. But, take it for what it's worth. Next up is Phantasy Star 3. I'm not a big RPG fan. Never really have been. But it's just a very highly acclaimed series. I'd like to try more RPGs. So I picked this one up quite a while back. And maybe that was because a little bit nostalgia. Like, I just remember this game, and I was at KB Toys, and some lady just randomly asked me, this flipping 12-year-old kid, what she should get for her kid for Christmas. I'm like, I don't know. And, she ended up picking up Phantasy Star 3, and she's like asking me about it. I don't know about it. It's an RPG. I don't like RPGs, but just interesting, that I picked it up now, and I'm looking for 2 and 4 as well as 1 for the Master System. But next up is a interesting shooter, Helios. At least it looks interesting. Kind of an uncommon game. A lot of people say it's pretty good. Haven't played it, but another shooter I want to give a try. Next up is Pitfall. I love this game. I remember my friend having it on the Super Nintendo, because that's the system they had, and I was over at his house and ended up beating it at his house. on the Super Nintendo, and so I got it for the Genesis, and I just always loved it. Either one is a great version to get, but if you really want good quality sound, get it for the Sega CD, and it's got CD audio quality in it. Just a really good game. Next up is Primal Rage. There's no game in there, just a placeholder. Next up, Prince of Persia. A game I've always liked since the early days of DOS. I'm just curious of how close this is playing the computer version, the DOS version, which I just absolutely love. But next up is Pulseman. Another reproduction, was not released here in the US. Looks like a lot of fun, just like the other ones. Check eBay, check Google. You should be able to find it. Quackshot. Looks like another fun Disney game. Namco's Quad Challenge, quad racing game. Saw this on Steve Benway's channel, and it looked okay, but I just really didn't add it to the list. But it came with that group of Genesis cases, so figured I have it now. Worth a try. Raid and Trad, game I had looked for a long time. Really fun shooter. I love the Raiden series, and I'm trying to get pretty much any game that I have, any Raiden game that I have a system for. So, Road Blasters, fun arcade game. I haven't played it on the Genesis. I loved it in the arcade. Be interested to see how well this port holds up. The Road Rash series, must have for any Genesis owner. 1, 2, and 3, they're all great. Get every single one of them, in my opinion. I don't know what else I can say. I love these 3 games. RoboCop versus the Terminator. I think this is a really fun game. Oh, I loved this from the day that I first played it back when I originally got my Genesis, and I love it to this day. It's also available on the Super Nintendo. I wouldn't bother with it on the Super Nintendo. Things have been changed around, and it's just doesn't really work. And also, it's this version, if you like the blood and guts like Sick Twisted Me, this is the version I have, because the Super Nintendo version is very, very, very toned down. Rock and Roll Racing, recently did a game time of this. Don't really need to say much more, but I think this is a must-own. It's sort of like a edgier version of RC Pro-Am for the Genesis. I think it's great. Rocket Knight Adventures. Supposed to be a decent hidden gem for the Genesis. Haven't played it, so we'll have to do a game time of that sometime. Next up is Shaq Fu. Everybody has to have Shaq Fu. It's sort of like E.T. or Superman 64 or whatever. It has this reputation for being so bad that no collection is complete without it. Is it as bad as people make it out to be? I don't think so. I don't agree. I think it's an okay fighting game, especially when you can pick it up for a couple of bucks. Next up is Shinobi 3, another game I regrettably haven't played, and it's been sitting in my collection for a long time. Definitely one I need to get out and actually put in the Genesis and maybe do a game time video of sometime. Next up is Skitching. It's like Road Rash, but with rollerblades, and we all know how big rollerblades were back in the 90s. And this to me was a lot of fun. Definitely a good game. I wouldn't pay more than $10 for it, but to me it was a lot of fun, and I think it's a must-own for the Genesis collectors, especially if you like those kinds of games. And now we will move on to the last group of Genesis games, and that will be the end of the collection video. But hold on just a second, I will be right back.